Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch. Talk about bringing in the big guns here. We are not resting here just because it's holiday season. Tom Fitton, I know there's a lot on your plate, and there's much to discuss as we move into December. Thank you for joining us. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family.
Same here. Happy Thanksgiving, Larry and Amber.
Listen, Tom, you and I have had almost daily conversations during the entire Trump presidency about the outrageous lies in the Steele dossier, the way the media lied about it, covered it up, spurred on the Mueller investigation. It was all bunk. We all, frankly, seen now that it's been confirmed by the Durham investigations. So tell me about, as you witnessed this so-called reckoning that the mainstream media is going through with regard to their coverage of the Russian collusion hoax.
It isn't much of a reckoning. They weren't, quote, gullible, in my view. They were active participants in the hoax. Because when you look at the dossier, it was obviously a lie, yet they ran with it and published it and took it seriously. And they said, well, now there's reporting, and I say they, meaning papers like the Washington Post, that bring questions about the dossier forward. But, who lied to them? If there was a reckoning, they tell us who lied to them, who
Right.
told them that the dossier was confirmed. That to me would show at least some good faith, some good faith on the part of the big media. But, my view is, they're co-conspirators. They knew it was a lie, and they were happy to act as partisan advocates against Donald Trump, using whatever weaponry they could find.
Yeah, Amber, I'll throw it to you. You're a journalist. You get sources all the time leaking information to you now and again. If that source leaks something like this and supports something that is a total fabrication, don't we, the public, deserve to know who leaked that and what their motivation was? That, in fact, reporters should do that. They should burn their own sources.
Yeah, as a journalist, I mean, if someone misleads you and gives you false information, you're no longer obligated to protect your source. And I think it would go a long way towards transparency if these outlets were to burn the people who gave them this false information. Meanwhile, these outlets, the Washington Post and the New York Times notably, got Pulitzer Prizes for this reporting, Tom. And former President Donald Trump actually sent a letter to the Pulitzer Prize Board asking them to strip them of those prizes. Do you think the former president also potentially has a case for defamation if he can prove that this reporting was done maliciously?
Well, I'm no lawyer, but, if I were him, I'd sue everyone, pursuing any claims that were available to me. But certainly they continue. Some of them continue to push this, certainly on the hardcore left. And, of course, the big lie out there, and everyone knew this from the get-go, in my view, and we're being told that by government agencies. Even the Mueller operation kind of had to admit it, if you read between the lines. No American knowingly colluded with the Russians on the elections. Certainly on these emails that were stolen, and of course the core dossier stories and allegations were false. The Pulitzer is a liberal advocacy group. Judicial Watch applied for a Pulitzer, and you know what we were told? You're not allowed to apply for a Pulitzer.
So, Tom, I mean, you'd think they keep saying, like, after the Nick Sandmann story and after the Jussie Smollett story and after the unbelievable damage to our nation during the Russian collusion, they go, we've had a reckoning. We're going to be better. We're going to get better. Well, just look at the Rittenhouse story. We've got the verdict in for Rittenhouse. No one has apologized. They continue to pass on this defamation that he's a white supremacist. I know you've been following that as well as this cop in Virginia who got fired for donating to his defense.
Yeah, that last one's really outrageous because many people may not know about it. His name was, I think he was Officer Kelly, worked for Norfolk, Virginia Police Department. His name was not was not out there until it was hacked. He made an anonymous donation, $25, which is enough to move mountains, right? To the Rittenhouse defense. His name was hacked. He was doxxed by a left-wing publication called The Guardian in the United Kingdom, and the police department fired him. and he's still fired. I think he's going through a grievance process because he's a government employee, thankfully, in this regard. So it takes forever and a day for things like that to get resolved. But there's been no little accountability there. But of course, a lot of it has been on the opinion side. And the big problem for people like the New York Times and the Washington Post and not so much CNN, since they're almost always opinion, is that they all know reporting-wise that Rittenhouse was likely to be found innocent, had strong self-defense claims, but you wouldn't know it from their editorial decision-making. And so, again, Rittenhouse, if I were him, I'd have my lawyers sue everybody I could. And I want to just jump back quickly to the Russiagate thing, because this always struck me as important. The Associated Press went to the FBI and Justice Department in 2016 with the code to the storage locker for Paul Manafort, who was then campaign manager for Trump, and they gave it to the FBI. And we have the documents showing that they were talking to the Justice Department and the FBI, advocating for his prosecution.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
These folks weren't reporters. They were trying to get people thrown in jail. In the case of Manafort, they were successful.
And that speaks to the wider trend in the reportage surrounding the Steele dossier and Russian collusion, where the FBI was reliant on media reportage in order to get, warrants for spying on Carter Page and advancing their theories. But in many cases, these media stories came from leaks from the FBI. It was all circular.
Right.
Yeah, I've called it, I've often observed, Larry, you may have heard me call it a self-licking ice cream cone.
Yes.
What's your source? Oh, well, I heard it from three people, me, myself, and I.
Yeah.
That was the way the FBI, and of course, the other big lie is the FBI wasn't like Christopher Steele was some guy who walked in off the street. They were literally paying him the same time as the Clinton campaign. 11 times, they met with him 13 times. They paid him 11 times during the campaign. They only fired him because he became such a leaker they couldn't trust him.
Yeah.
And so it was a joint operation between the FBI and these Clinton campaign operatives. So if I'm these folks who are being indicted, for what it's worth, I'd be like, you're gonna indict me for telling my co-conspirator
Right.
what we were up to, for lying to my co-conspirator? Come on.
Well, this is why we need to keep the pressure on, and a lot of these revelations would never have come forward if it weren't for the pressure that Judicial Watch pushes with Tom Fitton as their fearless president. And I truly do mean that. Thank you for all of your tireless work. We're very grateful for you, Tom, this Thanksgiving week, and thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome. And Special Counsel Durham, Obama did it. Let's get to work.